Paycheck by Sean Platt and David Wright. 15 days, just about long enough to lose your life if you leave the thing where someone might be able to swipe it. Good thing Melissa isn't a cheater. Or me, for that matter. The idea of having sex with anyone else is only alluring in the closing my eyes and putting myself to sleep sort of way. Might imagine it every now and then, but I wouldn't want to actually do it. Melissa is more than enough. Sometimes I feel like a little bitch, barely able to keep up. She's even said it out loud a few times. Always playful, of course. Fuck travel. And double fuck Delta. Triple fuck the guy on my right and the gal on my left. The dude reeks like a dirty diaper filled with diarrhea betrothed to a dead decaying dog, swimming in raw sewage and Lil Wayne albums. Or maybe a Waffle House. The dudette on the left is sexting her boyfriend, which would be fine and maybe even interesting if she were doing it on the phone like a normal person. Then maybe that shit might stay a mystery. I'd be curious, trying to grab little peeks, thrilled whenever I managed to make it. Instead, she's on an iPad Pro, and I can hear clacking every time she texts something like, "Wanna slap me on the face with your dick when I get home?" followed by the appropriately enthusiastic-sounding bloop with his reply. In the last one, he wanted to know if she preferred it on her face or back. There is a 7-year-old sitting right next to her, reading every word while her mother's face is buried in a copy of Cosmo that she's using less as entertainment and more as a shield from raising her child. Also, if I get bumped one more time from my flight, if I get another, "I'm sorry, sir," from some empty-headed idiot who can't think off script for a single minute and only wants me to stop asking for answers despite my having the patience of Job. If I even get the feeling that either of those two things are going to happen, then the soft-hearted man that Melissa fell in love with is going to be on the news sobbing, with our 2 children, Alex and Ariel, divided. These past 2 weeks were the longest I'd ever been away. I swore I'd go crazy if I was gone even one day longer than that. But now it looks like that might be happening. I'm dying to break something. I almost want someone to provoke me so I have a reason to throw down. If the person hits me back, then I can punch again, and harder. I was almost home when inclement weather, whatever that means, delayed my flight for 90 minutes, then kept us on the runway for another 3 hours after that. 3.5, actually. One of the stewards or stewardesses, or whatever the fuck you're supposed to call them these days, told us it had been 3 hours, which was the maximum they were allowed to keep us on the runway by law. But it was another half hour before they made us get off. I wasn't back in the terminal for 10 minutes before the flight was canceled. It was the first night since I'd left where I couldn't FaceTime with Melissa and the kids. We've been reading the Harry Potter series for the last couple of years, and we're up to the Goblet of Fire. Chapter 27. Padfoot Returns. Melissa and I are both big fans of the books and saw all the movies on their opening nights. By the time Deathly Hallows came out, we had to get a sitter for Alexander, who had just turned 1. Ariel was still 2 years away. It was great, rediscovering the books. Reading them with the children was like reading them for the first time again. Sometimes we would read a chapter twice because either Alex or Ariel would fall asleep too early, or because Ariel would want something explained. We're on our 2nd time through the Padfoot chapter, and the 3rd time for us is the most charming so far. My flight is finally called, and I bleat with all the rest of the sheeple as we're boarded. I shuffle into my shit seat. I was 2 rows from the front on my canceled flight. Now, 18 hours later, I'm stuck 3 from the back. It takes another million years to get clearance from wherever the pilot needed it from, and the safety demonstration is even more painful to ignore than usual. I'm hot, claustrophobic, and almost neurotic, dying to get home and back to myself. We're in the air for maybe 5 minutes before the lady next to me leans over and says the strangest thing. You ever hear about the Mandela effect? I have no idea what she's talking about, but I'd be a lot happier if she wasn't talking to me at all. I'm normally social, but I'm beyond exhausted, and even small talk is feeling a bit too big for me now. Still, I don't want to be rude. No, I admit. What's that? I never heard of it either, until just now. The woman laughs, but there's something nervous inside it. Maybe uncomfortable. I was just reading about it, after I couldn't stop wondering if I was going crazy. Then that laugh again, followed by silence. The lady wants me to ask why she thought that, and while I admit that was a decent open loop and my curiosity is piqued, I'm reluctant to ask. But then again, long flight. Why did you think you were going crazy? I finally ask. She looks relieved, almost thankful. Do you remember the Berenstain Bears? Of course. The woman looks at me with an expression that's far too serious for this conversation. She lowers her voice to a conspiratorial whisper and says, "How do you spell it?" Berenstain, I mean. I give her my version of that same look and enunciate every letter. Berenstain. The woman shakes her head, saying, "Well, it looks like reality agrees with you." What do you mean? I'm disappointed with myself that I want to know. I could have sworn it was Stein. I shrug because this isn't small talk. It's the size of a lepton. Seems like a reasonable mistake. And now I'm wishing I'd pretended to be sleeping before the plane took off. But if I try it now, it will just seem rude. It's reasonable enough that half the people in the world seem to have made the same one. What do you mean? I'm surprised to realize I actually want to know. This woman can't possibly have nabbed my attention, except maybe she has. It's her urgency. Like this spelling error is part of some global conspiracy. It's a common mistake. I almost got into a screaming match with my husband just now while waiting through all these delays. I don't even know how we got started on it, but he said it was with an A and I swore it was an E, and then we went back and forth until he told me to look it up. And then you found out it was spelled with an A? Well, yes, but I also Googled, did the Berenstain Bears change their spelling because you don't like to be wrong? She laughs. There are still too many nerves making it rattle. I don't mind being wrong at all, but I felt certain about this. Another laugh. I don't even know how to explain it other than it felt like something very wrong. I have no idea how to respond. Thank you for boring me. There's a name for it, you know. I can't tell if that's a question. A name for what? Again with the conspiratorial whisper. A name for this feeling I have. The feeling you get when something is spelled wrong? Now I want to laugh, but she beats me to it with another braying cackle. But this one definitely seems out of her control, and it goes on a little too long. I must sound crazy. She shakes her head. I mean the feeling you get when your reality conflicts with about half of everyone else's. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not just that I remember the word being spelled with an E, a ton of other people remember it like I do, and vividly. So there's a word for when a bunch of people remember something wrong. The laugh comes back, maybe for the last time, because now it sounds a bit like a leaking balloon, I guess. But then she doesn't say anything else. And I have to ask, well then, what is it called? The Mandela effect, she says. The woman introduces herself as April, then proceeds to tell me all about the phenomenon, how in the hour and a half in between the argument with her husband and boarding the flight, she'd gone down one internet rabbit hole after another, starting with Google, ending with Reddit, all making her feel irrational and balanced in tandem. The Mandela effect was apparently coined by a woman named Fiona Broome. Sounded fake to me, like maybe one of the main characters in a decent piece of literary fiction. But I didn't say anything. Just listened to April's story about how Fiona figured out that others shared her false memories about the South African civil rights leader Nelson Mandela. She thought he'd died in prison sometime during the late 80s, even though it wasn't until 2013. Turns out a lot of people agreed with Fiona, and there were examples of these shared false memories everywhere, enough that the phenomena needed a name. I couldn't disagree. The Mandela effect was catchy. We're still in the air, around midway between the two runways, and I've gone from thinking my single-serving seatmate was boring at best and crazy at worst, to feeling grateful for the entertainment, and glad April was the one to go down all those rabbit holes. I had fun comparing examples. The final lyrics for Queen's We Are the Champions are, "No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions and of the world." The HBO show was called Sex and the City, not Sex and the City. Neil Armstrong died in 2013, not 2012. The Monopoly Man never had a monocle. It's Jiffy Peanut Butter, not Jif. And Meyer, not Mayer with the wieners. Pikachu's tail clearly has a black tip. And the one that is blowing my mind. The way the Berenstain Bears clearly blew April's, the evil queen in Snow White, and the Seven Dwarves supposedly never says, Mirror, mirror on the wall, which she absolutely positively does because we just watched the DVD of that as a family a few months ago. Melissa owned it before we even met, but April is telling me that the Queen actually says, "Magic mirror on the wall." At least now I know what we're watching for movie night next weekend. Is there a scientific explanation for it? I ask. Apparently that was an invitation to ramble. Now she's going on and on about stuff I can't keep up with, about multiverses and quantum mechanics. I ask clarifying questions when it makes sense, but none of it really makes sense. We have another hour or so in our flight, and I am entertained. When not directly observed, electrons and other subatomic particles diffract like waves, only to behave like particles when a measurement is made. I ask what that means because even though I understand all of those words individually, taken together, it's a hash of confusion. She laughs. Hell if I know, but I think I found a new hobby. I'd be researching right now if I wasn't talking to you. Thanks for listening. And talking back. April admits to being confused herself, then goes on to tell me about some Nobel Prize-winning physicist named Erwin Schrödinger. I'd heard of his cat-in-a-box experiment, but not the other guy, Hugh Everett III. He proposed that Schrödinger's cat wasn't either alive or dead, but both, because there might be many worlds, and in that case, both realities could coexist. It's a lot to take in before returning my seat back to its upright position. The plane hugs the runway, and despite the conversation, I'm not sure I've ever felt more grateful for the ground. I see Melissa before she sees me. I'm coming down the escalator just like she expects me to, but she's eyeing the one that's 2 over from me. The children aren't with her. I wonder if it's because she wants us to have some alone time before Alex and Ariel start eating me up. They're probably with her parents, which means I'll have to see her father. Yippee. My foot hits the floor, then I walk quickly toward her. I wrap my arm around her waist. My lips are halfway to her neck when she yelps and spins around, shoving me in the chest as she falls a step back. Then she sees me and starts laughing. Her face is mad, but not really. She jumps into my arms. Our kiss is long. I set her back down, and she still has a foot in the air. I feel loved and missed, which is just what I'm needing. I'm so glad to be home. I'm so glad you're back. And then we're kissing again. She's more loving than usual. Or no, not that. Melissa's always loving, but right now, it's like she's less tired, so she has more room for me. It's a half-thought. I can't really do anything else at the moment. I'm 3 bumped flights beyond exhausted and desperate for my bed. As much as I would love to fall asleep inside her, I will happily settle for falling asleep. I take her hand as we walk to baggage claim. After an interminably long wait for my bag, we head to short-term parking. She's quiet, knowing how tired I must be. Just let me take care of you. She's said 3 times already, though for one of them she used only her eyes. She stops in front of a Prius. I wonder what she's doing, then she opens the trunk. Did we get a new car? Melissa looks at me, laughing lightly like she does when I'm making a joke that she doesn't quite get, though this time it's the other way around. She's standing there, expectant, looks from my bag to the open, empty trunk. I put the bag in, wondering how long before our new trunk will be full of crap. She goes to the passenger side and gets in. I'm standing there, wondering when the punchline is coming. I walk over and knock on her window. She opens the door and looks up at me. I don't have a key. You lost your keys? Melissa looks totally serious. I'm actually impressed. She's never been able to punk me. Today's no exception. I pull out my keys, look at the ring, then start laughing. Now I'm more than impressed. I'm inspired. I have no idea how she switched out my keys. Maybe she swapped them out before I left, banking on the same eyes that tend to miss the little things. Like the time she was mad I didn't notice her haircut after she chopped a full 6 inches from the bottom and got bangs. If I didn't see that the fob for our Honda Odyssey had been replaced, then she would have executed the perfect gag. Melissa is watching me look at my keys. So, you found them? I smile. Yep, right here in my pocket the whole time, just where I left them. Oh, okay. I get into the driver's side and close the door. As expected, it rides like a whisper. I hop on the highway and ease the Prius over into the middle lane. Are the children with your parents? Melissa laughs again, but this is her least comfortable one so far. And she doesn't answer. There's something off about this joke. I like that she's trying. She hasn't always liked my pranking, even actively discouraged it after the children were born. But I feel unsettled more than I should if I'm being set up for something fun. It's mostly in her mood. I would think she was mad at me, if not for the way we met at the escalator. I tried changing the subject. Did Alex and Ariel get along while I was gone? I can feel her looking at me, so I turn and see her eyes are actually bothered. It's a hell of a performance. I'm sorry, honey. She makes a face. I'm just really not getting it. Okay, fine, well played. She changes the subject herself. How was your trip? Terrible. Exhausting. Pointless. Long. I laugh because, oh my God, the last 2 weeks. But it's over, and I did everything Robertson asked for, so there should be zero reason to keep me from running the Drake account. I don't understand. Isn't your running the Drake account the entire reason for the trip? Isn't that what I just said? Is this part of whatever punchline should be coming any minute now? Well, yeah, obviously. So are you having problems with Robertson? Nothing new, I say, thinking that this is all still feeling a little off. You need a nap. Melissa laughs again. This time it sounds a little more certain, more like the Melissa I know. I'm sure you'll feel better when you wake up. Maybe she's reading my mind. Neither of us says anything else until I get off on Barkley, headed toward her parents' house. Where are you going? To your parents' house? It looks that way. Why? I'm actually starting to hate her little game, but instead of saying, to pick up Alex and Ariel, like I should, I go ahead and keep on playing. Remember that little Italian place we ate at when your parents forgot we were coming over and went to play Pinochle instead? No. Maybe that's because Melissa drank most of the bottle that night. It was great. That was when you started making Brussels sprouts because you really liked theirs. Even looking straight through the windshield, I could see Melissa playing full out, making a face in my peripheral vision as she tells me she hates Brussels sprouts. I ask her if she means even the ones at Alejandro's with the bacon and walnuts. Then, sticking to her exhausting script, Melissa tells me she's never had Brussels sprouts with bacon and that she doesn't remember ever eating at a place called Alejandro's. She doesn't insult my intelligence by pretending not to have ever even seen the place or anything like that when we get there, but she does continue to insist that she's never eaten there. After we park, after we're seated, after we look at the menus and order a bottle, and after the Brussels sprouts are brought to our table, Melissa laughs while she's chewing a mouthful, eyes rolling up into the back of her head. These are so good. She's making the same sounds she does when I'm licking her like ice cream, but she's acting like she's never tasted those caramelized sprouts before. You were totally right. They're even good enough to make up for the totally stupid way you got us here. We order some more to go home, but then she's back at it when I make a left out of the lot instead of a right. It's right, Melissa says, like I need the reminder. I keep my mouth shut because honestly, I don't even know how to play whatever this is that we're playing. I make it all the way to Brewer before she gently taps my arm. Dead serious, she says. I'm not sure what you're doing, but please, I don't even want to pretend to visit my parents right now. Again, I have no idea what to say. Another round to Melissa. I flip a bitch and head for home, half expecting her to divert me when we're 2 blocks away to remind me that we've always lived on Rogers and not Appian. But she doesn't, and I pull into our driveway with a sigh, looking up at the house and thinking that it looks slightly different, knowing it's probably not, and that my head is a mess with all the exhaustion and Melissa's out-of-character mind games added to all of the sex and the city that April put into my head. You sure everything's okay? Melissa asks as I'm grabbing my bag from the unfamiliar trunk. I still want to ask about the Prius, even more than before, but I know right now I'm likely to get an answer as crooked as my father's accountant. The Odyssey is gone and we're parked next to a silver Audi I've never even seen. I'm great. I force my smile, really wanting this stupid joke to end. Just beyond tired. Melissa follows me onto the porch. No other hearty har-hars with my keys. The door opens right up, Then I walk inside. As soon as I close the door, she throws herself into my arms like she's trying to erase the last hour and a half of weirdness. I hug her back, and for a moment, everything is just as it should be. Until it hits me. The house doesn't just look different from the outside. It feels different too. There is a forest of silence. I expected the children to be home with a sitter, but they're not. My temperature starts to rise. I've been a good sport about this, but I'm about to blow my top. If I have to drive all the way back to her parents, Melissa wouldn't do that. The joke is probably a moment from over, and she'll put me to bed with a blowjob or better, then wake me for dinner and dessert. Pizookies, I'm guessing, if the children have their way. I want to ask about them anyway, just to put my nerves at ease. Maybe the sitter is keeping Alex and Ariel quiet in one of their bedrooms, except Melissa always uses the app, hiring whoever has the best ratio of quality to quantity in their reviews and lives within a 10-mile radius. But none of those girls, or the one guy, drive Audis, and they sure wouldn't need to be watching our little ones for $12 an hour if they did. We don't go to the bedroom at all. Instead, Melissa is casual, dropping her purse on a new end table by the door. It's delicate, and not the sort of thing we would typically buy. It looks like Alex might be able to pass it 4 times if he's lucky, before finally tripping on the 5th, running too fast and snagging his foot on one of those spindly little legs. This is all so elaborate, and I'm still not sure if I should be impressed. Finally, I can't help it. I'm home. You forgot to say honey. The house is still silent. Word games won't get me anywhere right now, so I start looking through the living room, trying to figure this out. It's immaculate, like the place is dressed for a catalog shoot. There isn't a toy in sight, and now that I'm looking, there are more than a few things that feel different. For a flicker, I get the distinct feeling I'm in someone else's house. "What are you doing?" Melissa asks from behind me, as if she doesn't know. "What are you looking for?" I turn around. I'm not sure what I'm expecting to see. Maybe a glint of satisfaction that Melissa was obviously getting to me. Instead, her eyes agree with the lower corners of her mouth, which are tugging her entire face down into a reluctant frown. She looks almost worried. Seriously, I didn't know she had it in her. I decide to answer her straight. "I'm looking for Alex and Ariel." Melissa looks at me blankly. "Our children." "Jamie, we don't have children." Something breaks in her voice. Ugly and unexpected. Feels so real. It's a shock to my system. I fall an involuntary step back. Maybe I'm just too tired to understand it, but I don't want to play this game anymore, and I have no idea how to locate the nearest exit. It isn't easy to find a smile, but I take what I can and force it onto my face. "Did we sell them?" Melissa says nothing. "I hope we got a fair price." After a beat, I add, "Oh, is that how we paid for the Audi? And the Prius? Good call on the Toyota, by the way. Those things have monster resale value." Her face is getting even darker, like the sun has left her sky and yet the shadows are using the darkness to grow. Her shoulders are high and tight, her jaw clenched. This is her weird-ass prank, but she's standing there heaving and staring at me like I'm some kind of bad guy. I'm beat, bushed, bagged, desperate for my bed. I laugh. It's even harder than the smile, but I manage. It almost sounds real. "Haha, this is all really funny. Look how we're laughing together now." But Melissa isn't laughing, and she looks even more upset than a moment ago. I need to figure this out, whatever it is. I'm starting to feel so upset, I can't imagine being able to sleep. Like I'm so starving that more than a few bites might make me sick. "So, how was everything while I was gone?" "It was great, Jamie. You know how it is, me and the children couldn't wait for you to get home." There is something unbearable in Melissa's voice that I've never heard there before. "Why are you saying it like that? Why are you saying any of this at all? This is totally nuts and I can't take it another minute." I'm glad Melissa wanted to play, and sure, it was my turn to get pranked, but there is nothing funny about this. Or even fun. I would never put her through something like this just to scream "gotcha" at the end. I turn around and head for the stairs. "Where are you going?" Melissa asks from behind me. "To see how far you took this." "Just checking out our upstairs." I see exactly how far she's taken it, but can't make it work out in my head. I'm walloped with vertigo and can barely stay standing. I expected that maybe, at worst, Melissa would have rearranged the children's rooms, but instead, they aren't even there. Our home is a 4-bedroom. Melissa and I sleep in the primary at the end of the hall and to the right. Alex's room is on the opposite end of the hallway, with Ariel's at the top of the steps, next to the bedroom we made into a playroom after Alex was born. But the blueprint has changed. Now there is only the primary bed and bath, though both are massive and beautifully decorated. The walls are otherwise smooth, without a doorknob to mar them. And the door that once led to the playroom is now a long, thin closet. I'm standing in the hallway dumbfounded. Melissa is still as a statue, standing at the top of the stairs, watching me emerge from our bedroom, her eyes now more haunted than bothered. The hallway is lined with pictures, just like before my trip. There are even more of them now, thanks to the additional wall space. There are many photos of me and Melissa, our wedding, parties, birthdays, anniversaries for both of our parents, trips to the beach, and photos with various friends and family. But our children aren't in any of them. The pictures of things that never happened make my heart beat the hardest. It's the best Photoshop work I've ever seen. I take a step toward the wall and stare even harder. Then the oddest thing starts to happen. A sense stirs inside me in slow and steady circles, round and round, wider and wider, until all of a sudden I'm remembering things that couldn't be true. The pictures no longer look like Photoshop jobs, they feel like genuine memories. But then I shake my head and the feeling is gone. I'm doing the math while Melissa continues to stare. None of this is possible. 2 weeks is the longest I've ever been gone, but there's no way she could have had construction done on the house, with all evidence gone by the time I returned. Could she have? And the bigger question, why would she want to? That part made even less sense. The alternative is that I have gone batshit. And yes, I am maybe more tired than I've been since a month or so after Ariel's first birthday, when she finally started sleeping through the night. But I'm not tired enough to have gone entirely mad. I have 2 children. Alex is 9 years old, born on September 3rd. It was the sunniest day in recent history, and maybe that I'd ever seen. I remember thinking, what a beautiful sunny day for my son to be born on. Ariel is 7, and it was pouring rain on the day she was born. And I thought, she's so beautiful, God can't stop crying. It was March 11th. The night before last, which right now feels like a year ago, I read to them both on FaceTime from Harry Potter. No, I read to all 3 of them, and Melissa read to us. We talked again later, after she finished and put the children to bed. I was trying to occupy myself by wandering the terminal. We discussed putting Harry on pause. Things were about to get even darker at Hogwarts, and we didn't want to scare her. But then, after a conversation that wasn't all that long but felt maybe 4 times longer being on FaceTime, we decided it's never too young to introduce our children to some of the world's harsher realities, so long as we're willing to have the conversations that help them to understand them. I don't know what to do or think or feel. Right now, I don't even know how to move, and I can't stand the way my Melissa is looking at me. There is a lingering, deafening silence between us. Then finally, my voice cracking but not quite in half, I say, I think there's something wrong with me. Melissa walks over to me, her face changed softer. She takes my hand and put her head against my chest. You're just really, really tired, sweetie. Come on. She leads me into our bedroom, walking us past the new mirror, the massage table that the room wasn't big enough for 2 weeks ago, and the blush-colored orchid, which was exactly the kind of frivolity Melissa liked to remind me we couldn't afford whenever I brought her one as a present. She lays me on the bed like a blanket. The comforter is also new. It's soft underneath me. Melissa sich and Clydet. I've always thought she was beautiful, but her body hasn't looked like this in a decade. On top of our apparent home remodel, it looks like a surgeon has done the same for her. I realize that my mouth is hanging open. I quickly close it. She laughs, and I haven't heard it sound this sweet since the airport. You like what you see? Of course I do, and I'm too exhausted to question anything else. I missed you so much, I say. I missed you too. And then she shows me. That put Melissa to sleep, but despite my bone-deep fatigue, I'm still wide awake. This might be the first time in our history that it's not the other way around. I don't want to get out of bed and investigate. I'm sure if I can just fall asleep, everything will make sense the second I wake up. You can be missing 24 pieces from a 100-piece puzzle, and when you assemble what you have, imagine the picture. But some enigmas need every available element before they can be seen as a whole. And this feels like that. Still, it didn't matter what I try, how many times I count down from 100, flex my toes, or tell myself stories. 2 hours later, the war for relief from fatigue and possible insanity is still at a stalemate. I get out of bed, careful to stay quiet. Melissa won't want to wake up and see me rooting around in the room, rather than getting the sleep I so desperately need. I pick up my pants from the floor where Melissa dropped them, then slip into our studio-sized bathroom. The toilet has its own damn room. I go inside and sit on the closed lid, then pull out my wallet and start looking through the pictures. I'm old-fashioned. I remember how proudly my father kept photos of my brothers and me in his wallet. He showed them at every opportunity. And at a time when everything was moving to digital and fewer people were printing anything, let alone carrying pictures in their wallets when they had a library on their phones, I always appreciated this tangible reminder. I use my wallet to look at pictures more than I use it for money. I look at my favorite first. The four of us took a trip to North Carolina last summer, spent a week at Emerald Island, a total digital blackout, Melissa insisted. One of the best weeks of my life. The picture proved it. Except this one didn't. There was a version in the hallway, but that one had been doctored. More of that gorgeous Photoshop work. But how Melissa got the fake into my wallet, same for my keys, I can't imagine. We're in front of the kissing booth, kissing of course. But just like the one in the hallway, our children aren't scrunching their noses or in any way indicating their parents have cooties for kissing, because neither child is there. My wallet is on the floor. I realize I'm staring at it. Probably have been for 5 minutes or more. I think that finally did it. I can go to sleep now. Or maybe I already am. I'm either dreaming or desperately need to. Sleep is my only antidote. I have no idea what time it is and don't care. I'm not sure where my phone is and haven't worn a watch in years. The alarm clock that's been on my side of the bed for the last 5 years is now missing. But my head sinks into the pillow, and I'm already slipping into the sweet bliss of sleep. The world is normal in my dream. Melissa picks me up from the airport with Alex and Ariel. We eat dinner. Not at Alejandro's, because no matter how much Melissa loves those Brussels sprouts, the children do not. Instead, we eat at Castle's, the children's favorite place because, according to the kiddie menu, dessert is mandatory. We go home and maybe play Parcheesi because that's the phase Alex is in right now. He likes the elephants and most of the time manages to bully Ariel into being the camels. The rest of my dream was like life, except Melissa's body bore the evidence of the life we have lived together for the last dozen years. It doesn't just feel like a new day when I finally wake. It feels like the next week, maybe the next month. I'm awake for a while before I finally feel brave enough to open my eyes. But when I do, my stomach rolls over at what I see. The room is the one from my nightmare, if that's what it was. Twice the size and somehow less. I get out of bed, my bladder about to burst, trying hard not to think too much about any of this because I know that might kill me. And since I can hear the light pitter-patter of Melissa downstairs, I know my answers will be coming soon enough. But I wait all day, and those answers never come. I didn't want to say anything from the first moment I saw her look up when I entered the kitchen. She seemed so hopeful, and in that moment, I knew without a doubt there was something wrong with me. I have to figure out what it is, unearth the logical explanation. It's out there, it has to be. I can't outright ask, so I keep myself constantly engaged in casual conversation, then cull each of those conversations for clues. But I'm even more confused by bedtime. At least I sleep like a lamb and wake before dawn. Now it's Monday, I'll be going into work, and there at least I might find answers. I'm driving into work, trying to remember the last time I felt this nervous. Probably when I was on the way to pick up Layla Dobbs. We were going to see the senior class production of Bye Bye Birdie, then stop at Liberty Park on the way home. We hadn't said the words out loud, but we both knew we were going to do it, and it would be the first time for both of us. We did, and it was. The butterflies didn't stop until after I finished, and even then, only a little. This was worse, way worse than that. But as much as I thought Baxter and Stoley would be called something else, or maybe sit somewhere different, it was right there on the corner of Radnor and Sage, like always. I park in my same spot in a different car, then walk inside and wave to, mercifully, Louise on my way to the elevator. So far, so good. Looks like the joke might only be playing at home. Maybe I'm not going nuts. Feels good to believe in the earlier theory, that Melissa might be pulling one over on me. Except this makes her crazy enough to have her committed, once I figure out what she's done with our children. I'm looking for Bob, my best friend at Baxter and Stoley, but he isn't in his office because it no longer belongs to him. I find him in the lounge heating up a bag of microwave popcorn. It's 9:17 in the morning. "Hey, boss," Bob says, happy to see me. But Bob has never reported to me, and while boss sounds affectionate, it doesn't sound like much of a joke. I walk over to Bob, determined to figure this out, sure there must be some logical explanation. He thrusts out his bag of popcorn. "Want some?" The smell is both terrible and enticing. "No thanks." "How was the trip?" "Great. Until it was time to come home." "You didn't want to come home?" "Of course I did, but ideally without the 3 bumped flights." Bob whistles and says, "Well, shit. But then again, I guess that's what the big bucks are for." Then he plunges his hand back into the popcorn. I watch him eat, trying to figure out the best way to ask my next question. No matter how I tumble it around in my head, "Hey Bob, do you happen to know if I have any kids?" just doesn't sound right. Just as the lull is about to break, I picture Bob walking off with his popcorn and a "see you later." This time with boss added to the end. Before he leaves, I say, "I've never been away from my family that long." He smirks, but I'm not sure what that means. "They really missed me." Bob stops chewing. He looks like he wants to lean over and whisper to his neighbor. "What did he say?" I shrug. Knowing Bob, I won't need to do anything else. 5 seconds pass and the popcorn still reeks. "Who's they?" And there it is. Melissa. Then a beat later, my insides clenched, I add, "and the children." His face looks like he's trying to untangle a knot. I don't get it. I consider my next question. Have you been talking to Melissa? Please, just tell me what's going on. Are you crazy or is that one all on me? I don't want to play any games or discover my attic's abandoned, but the words spill out of my mouth. My family missed me, Melissa, and our 2 children, Alex and Ariel. Bob starts laughing. It's not even his work laugh. The big thing is coming right from his belly, his shirt tight enough that maybe he should have added an X to his XL a while ago. "Okay, boss." He's about to walk away, makes it 2 steps before I call his name. He turns back. "Yep." "You've never met my children?" It takes him a second, but then he grins and says, "Of course I've met your kids. Alex and Ariel, right? We're going to Disney World for their birthday. Or birthdays, I guess. I'm taking them both, each time, and we'll stay until after midnight, because that's when Old Man Walt lets the unicorns out of their stables." Bob's still chewing oily cancer through his laughter as he walks away. The rest of the day isn't too different from usual, except instead of doing the things I usually do, I tell some guy I've never met named Steven to do them. I sit at my desk, not really clear on what I'm supposed to do. I was never sure what Robertson did in here. He's not in the company directory, and I have no idea if he ever was. I start clicking through industry blogs long enough to get the ridiculous thought that I'd earned a little peek at Fuckit, a brilliantly coded website that bypasses the office blockers. Steven is much better at my job than I am. I try again with Bob at the end of the day. The act is a wish with little hope inside it. He actually seems irritated with me. "You've never had any kids. You told me Melissa couldn't get pregnant." Weird as it is, the first part I almost expected. The second feels like Boeing dropped one of their best on my head. I'm looking at Bob like an idiot because I don't have the breath to speak. He claps me on the shoulder. "I think you should have probably taken a sick day, man." Bob laughs, wants me to know it was said with love. "You need some rest." I'm in terrible shape when I get home. I can't even eat, even though I try twice, with Melissa looking at me both times, getting more worried. Sleep is even harder, throwing rocks from across the street and laughing at my madness. I sleepwalk through the next few days. It's Thursday, and I have a brand new chance to pick at the truth. We're going to Melissa's parents' house, and she isn't happy. At least this is familiar. I'm not exactly sure how to play this. The last thing I want to do is look nuts in front of her father. The man has a temper. It's not bad. It's terrible. If he thinks I'm messing with him or playing some sort of game he doesn't understand, he's likely to fly off the handle. We're eating a chicken teriyaki dish Elaine found on one of those sites where you can steal a restaurant's recipes. This one was obviously lifted from Applebee's, and she's done a god-awful job making it. I'm wincing with every other swallow, not pretending to enjoy it so much as faking that I don't hate every bite. Other than that, the evening so far has been brutally normal. I spent the entire drive and all of dinner so far trying to think of a way to bring up my apparently non-existent children. Finally, just before Elaine brings out the Jell-O, I finally figure out a way to maybe try this. I had a weird dream last night. Then I wait for someone to show interest. After an uncomfortable moment, I get backup from my wife. What was the dream about, honey? I dreamed that we had 2 children, Alex and Ariel. Her shoulders stiffen, her jaw clenches. Her hand drifts away from mine. I look across the table. Elaine's eyes are full of an old sorrow that feels eerily familiar, like I've seen it many times. And looking closer, it's something I've seen in Melissa's eyes 1,000,000 times. I can't remember a single one of those either. But there's something in Harold's expression, unmistakable and true. It isn't much, but there's a flare of recognition I can't pretend I don't see. So in this dream, everything is almost exactly like it is now, except I'm hustling for a promotion at work instead of being the boss. Our house has 2 extra bedrooms, and those rooms are filled with our 2 children, Alex and Ariel. Why are you doing this? Melissa is about to cry. Normally I would do everything in the world to prevent her tears. But right now, and quite suddenly, I practically want to see them. Almost feel I deserve to. I don't know who is putting me through all of this. Her, God, some internal torment of my mind's own trickery that I cannot fathom or perhaps even understand. But I'm agitated. No, I'm volcanic. It was so real. I keep going, even though her parents are staring, and Melissa is now softly starting to cry. We were reading Harry Potter. I get in a couple more lines before Melissa bolts up from the table. She doesn't even say goodbye to her parents. She's out of the house and in the passenger seat of our Prius, probably wishing she could drive off without me. I say an awkward goodbye, not knowing how to make this seem anything other than weird, and get in the car. We're silent for miles. I want to talk, or do anything that might thaw this ice between us, but what am I supposed to say? Or do, or think, or anything? Fuck. I never imagined I'd go crazy. Mental illness doesn't run in my family, and you can't count my cousin Janice. Yes, she's a little nuts, but believing in ghosts and traveling the world to sleep in haunted houses isn't the same thing. Or double fuck, maybe it is. I'm an inch from insanity, and Melissa knows it. Pull over, she says as we're passing Provisions. Now? No, yesterday. I swing into the lot, park behind a Starbucks that's long since outgrown its last remodel. Just please tell me what's going on with you. I have no idea how to answer that because hell if I know. She deserves so much more than my anemic response. What do you mean? You know what I mean. You've been weird ever since I picked you up from the airport. This thing with our imaginary kids? It hurts, Jamie. Like, a lot. And you keep doing it. I'm trying to be cool. Roll with it. But I don't get it and I don't like it, and tonight at my parents'... Now she's shaking her head. And it's not just that, it's everything. You barely seem like yourself. I don't know what happened. There's no other way out of this Twilight Zone bullshit. I have to tell her the truth. I'm sorry you aren't getting the reaction you want, sweetie. But that's because this isn't funny. Maybe it's time we just put it to bed, okay? Melissa looks at me. Her eyes are pleading. I want to agree with everything she's saying. Make this all go away. But I don't know how. or how much to confess. I look up at the Starbucks. The remodel looks great, especially the fresh paint. Blacks look blacker, and the green is almost hunter against it. And now I'm trying to remember why we're parked in front of it. "So now you're going to ignore me?" Melissa says. "Just because I'm asking you to stop hurting me?" I feel a punch to the gut. Why would I ever want to hurt her? We're parked here, so we must have been fighting about something. Maybe I'm tired. We can finish this, then run inside for a latte. "We never had kids, Jamie. You know we can't. I can't." "Of course we can't," I say, and it feels like a familiar truth. Something scratches hard at my brain as I say it. I pick and I poke, but I'm not sure what it is. I seem to remember something about a dream, something about children named Alex and Ariel, a 4-bedroom house. I must have shared the dream with Melissa and reminded her of our old wishes that could never be granted. "I'm sorry." She's crying harder now, though the sound is actually softer. We hug and make up. Melissa seems so relieved, and I don't want to press for details. I probably should have gone ahead with the coffee. I'm feeling more tired than it seems I should. Maybe that's why I can't remember much from the last few days, even though right now, idling in front of this red light, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I think back to when my memories are clearer. Waiting to board the plane, finding my seat, and falling into conversation with a woman who wouldn't stop talking. Too bad I can't remember the conversation. Ironically, I think it might have had something to do with the things we forget. It's been 2 weeks since the weirdness. Life has returned to normal. Every now and then, Bob will joke about my imaginary kids and we both laugh, though I don't find it as funny as Bob does. And every time he mentions them, I get this weird, off feeling, like something isn't right. But then it passes. I'm at the bookstore with Melissa. It's on the other side of town, so we only come here when we eat at Randolph's. Usually I like going to the bookstore, but I ate way too much at dinner. So I find an overstuffed couch and wait for the lethargy to fade or for Melissa to finish browsing. I could be here a while either way. I close my eyes and am actually drifting off until a girl's giggle snaps me awake. A mother and her daughter are sitting on the love seat across from me. The girl is around 4 or 5, wearing a unicorn horn, which seems so random that I can't help but smile when she looks at me. Her mom is reading her a book that looks familiar, though I can't quite place why. Half the cover is concealed by her mom's hand and she's holding it an odd angle, but I can make out an anthropomorphic bear wearing what looks like a dress and bonnet. I feel like maybe I'd read it as a kid. "Hi," I say, leaning over. "What book are you reading?" She holds up the cover so I can get a better look. The Berenstain Bear and the Truth.